Don't know about that, Dave. I'm not sure that you're here to save the day, but there's a certain gentleman by the name of Keir Starmer, who in the UK is supposedly there to save the day, because they called a snap election. Rishi Sunak called a snap election. And it looks like Keir Starmer's Labour Party are actually 20 points ahead in the polls. So, there's an interesting fact. I just looked up Keir Starmer. I've never heard of the guy before. But he represents Labour in the constituency that I was born in, Holborn St Pancras, which is actually one of the weirdest constituencies, I think, in the country, because to the north end of that constituency, everything there is solid, would be what you call solid working class, solid working people. To the south of that end of that is pure upper class snobbery.
Well, everyone, welcome to Talking Niagara. And Peter's been going on there about the upcoming British election. The UK is having an election. Why? Is it all of the UK?
Probably, yeah. It's a general election. Yeah, general election. Rishi Sunak has basically thought about it, and essentially the election could be held as late as January of 25. But the thing about it is, if he calls an election at that point, he's literally likely to be running into Christmas, and nobody wants a Christmas election. The other possibility,
six week. He's going to have it by July 4th.
Yeah,
that's
July
what the
4th.
announcement is.
Yeah, July 4th. So U.S. Independence Day is British Election Day. There you go.
And here you go. Here's something that most people don't know. American Independence Day was a mistake.
Yes,
it's
it was
supposed to be July 2nd.
Yes,
it's supposed to be July 2nd. That's when it was ratified. The agreement was ratified, and the Declaration of Independence. But for some reason, it got stuck on somebody's desk and didn't appear until July 4th. So everybody thought they had signed it on July 4th and made July 4th, and there was no way of stopping it once it started. So the actual day of independence is actually July 2nd. But yes. But July 4th got it by accident, and there you have it.
And you would imagine, actually, July 1st being Canada Day, July 2nd being US Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. So the International Criminal Court is actually seeking arrest warrants for both Israel and Hamas leaders, but Trudeau is troubled by this.
Yeah, he's he thinks that there's an equating one with the other, but he really didn't look at the charges. Now he says that the equivalence between Hamas and Israel shouldn't be there. I'm not so sure it shouldn't, but in his case, he wouldn't, because he said that. But the first thing I like to say, these are charges. They're separate charges. There's not an equivalence on charges. Yeah. They're completely separate charges.
I wasn't meaning to indicate that they were.
No, but that was that is the complaint by most Western leaders, or the equivalence of it. It says that it implies an equivalence between the two groups. The two groups are charged with completely different things, and so I suppose it was a good political move to hit them both at the same time. But they're both war criminals, and that's what they're saying. Trudeau, on the other hand, has made a rather bad mistake here. He's called he doesn't like the equivalence of Israel being a democratically elected government and Hamas being a bloodthirsty terror group. That was his words. That is dumb. For one thing, it doesn't really tell you. It doesn't say anything about an oppressive state, an apartheid state, and it also makes out like don't forget that the South African government, before the repealing of apartheid, the South African government was a democratically elected government. It had an
Yes, it was.
excellent democracy for white people. It had an excellent constitution. So in Trudeau's own words, back then he would have supported the South African government over the ANC, which he would have been forced to call a bloodthirsty terror group.
Yeah.
If you told him today, if you were alive back in the 80s, you would have said that the ANC was a bloodthirsty terror group, and the government of South Africa was a democratically elected government. You would have picked the apartheid state, and that's what he's done here. He's picked an apartheid state. I don't think he even knows it.
And that's the challenging thing about this. And you know, both you and I have said right from the outset of all of this, we've agreed that what Hamas did was wrong, right? We've also agreed that what Israel did was wrong, right? So we've taken that stance pretty well from the beginning of this affair.
Yes, and I think actually it should be. It's not really done in its context. The first thing, even the Canadian UN guy, Bob Ray, he went up and he started to insist that everybody condemn what Hamas did before they go on. That was the initial thing. They had to condemn Hamas. However, nobody's taking this in the context. Like the one UN leader, I forget his name offhand, he said that this didn't happen in a vacuum, and he got a lot of flack for it. But every group or every people that is oppressed sooner or later revolts back, and it looks pretty ugly most of the time. And whether it's Geronimo, Ned Turner, or the Haitians revolting back, and they murdered everybody they could get their hands on. But meanwhile, Haiti is hailed as the first black democracy, and yet it had a pretty violent beginning. So what's happening here is nobody's taking this in the context. They're saying that this all started October 7th. That's it. It didn't start October 7th. It started way back before 1900, and each time the Palestinians have been oppressed a little bit more. The country of Israel proper, what it is now, what we recognize as Israel, is 20% Palestinian, but those Palestinians don't have the exact same rights as the Jewish Hebrew-speaking ones. Israel is an ethno-religious state. It's kind of like South Africa, whereas you had to be a white person, where here you have to be a Jewish person to become a citizen of Israel. It's very difficult outside of that. You have to learn. Any Jew anywhere around the world could come and become a citizen of Israel and vote in Israel's elections, no matter where they live in the world. But the Palestinians can't, and they're the ones that used to live on that land for 1,000 years. So you're talking when this whole thing, like Trudeau has made that terrible mistake of not seeing the whole thing in context.
And whatever we say about this, Israel, well, right or wrong, I just can't see how Israel can be right on this whole affair. And that's not. I'm not saying that because I hate Israel or or hate Jews. I don't. I've always accepted that the Israeli state has a right to exist, but I also accept that the Palestinian state has a right to exist.
Well, yeah. Basically, what we now call Israel was a colony. It was colonized. mostly by European Jews, but it has of late become more Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews. And I think, hi, Chris. Good morning. So the real problem here is it's an ethno-religious state, and it claims the West Bank, but it does not want the Palestinians to have a country. They don't even want the Palestinians to be there. They are slowly but surely forcing the Palestinians out of the West Bank. And Gaza, there are many people who believe that this Gaza thing is an attempt at annihilation of the Palestinian people. Chase them out of there, get them out of there. They're making the place unlivable. I mean, they were bombing, destroying universities in areas where the IDF controlled. So the IDF controls an area, and there's a university, an empty university. Well, they blew the whole thing up because they certainly didn't want them to come back and start going back to university.
Yeah, but you see, when you look at the northern part of Gaza, it's essentially been cleared, hasn't it?
No, it hasn't. The insurgents have come back with a vengeance. So they thought they had it controlled, and the insurgents have begun to attack them again.
Okay, so what I meant is they had started to clear it, right? And I think that's the reason they were trying to clear all the buildings out, get rid of everything.
Well, the thing is that the argument that they're making the place unlivable and hoping that they'll move out, and members of the government are calling for colonization of Gaza, basically for settlers to go there. And the fact that the United States has done absolutely nothing to help the Palestinians in their fight against the settlers, it tells you that it's a one-sided thing. I believe that the United States and Israel are just kind of hoping to get over this part, and they know everybody's got a short memory, and they hope that they can do to the Palestinians what we did to the indigenous people: push them away, find some place for them. I have a feeling that the second sort of solution to the Palestinians, the final solution to the Palestinians, will be to put them in the Negev desert someplace. They'll find a reservation in the Negev desert and surround it, like they do Gaza, basically.
Yeah,
put everybody there. There's not a real country. They don't have any control over their own resources. They have to depend on water, food, and electricity, and they're inside a walled-in, fenced-in area.
Yeah, and they're grateful then to Israel for everything that they get. Yeah, that's not something that that's not right.
One of the reasons why there's so many tunnels in Gaza is because the Israelis didn't want a whole lot of extra stuff going into Gaza to make it a more comfortable place, whether it was food or TVs or whatever else. So so big smuggling network started, and that was the source of the original source of the tunnels. The tunnels were made by smugglers to bring stuff into Gaza. They could not normally get through
the problem here
with Israel.
The problem here is that you create almost instantly with that a black market, don't you?
Yeah. So I don't think the average person here in Canada. I talked to a lady. I had a conversation with a lady I know, my own age, and she just couldn't understand the Palestinian Israeli thing at all. She hadn't paid attention to it much, and all she knew was that a bunch of terrorists went through a party that was going on and a lot of people got killed, and some of them got picked up as were kidnapped and are held as hostages. My God, no! The whole thing was like they attacked the army first, and then they started to try to take hostages and things like that. And anyway, being out of context, most North Americans just don't get it. We've had a very one-sided view of the Middle East, Israel, and Palestine for a very long time. Very one-sided. It's almost entirely heavily slanted towards the Israeli side. This particularly in the United States, where the lobby is so strong. The lobby is also very powerful in Britain. As we know, Jeremy Corbyn got painted as an anti-Semite because, and that was his enemies doing that because they were afraid that he was going to recognize Palestine. So they had to besmirch him as much as they could. He's nowhere near an anti-Semite, but that ruined his career for a while. And they're going to do that too in Canada. The Israeli lobby is very, very popular, powerful. And we don't understand that. The average Canadian and American does not understand the power of an Israeli lobby in Canada
I know,
or the United
it's surprising.
States.
And when you think about it, we had that complaint about the Chinese and how they had impacted our election, and most people felt that was disgusting, but most people turn a blind eye when it comes to the Israeli lobby.
The Israeli lobby is probably at its peak power right now in the United States. However, something's happening that they don't want, and that is a lot of attention.
Yeah,
you're able to function sort of under the radar a little bit. They would come up to you and they would say, if we were to believe the politicians that have come out, what they do is say, "Here, are you with Israel or not?" And then if you didn't really care, you say, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll tell you anything you want for that, for those donations you're going to direct my way." And what they did they didn't do the directions directly back in those days. They would hook up donors to you, which would further sort of disguise their tracks. Now it doesn't matter. You could be a Democrat, an independent, a communist, a fascist. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have a positive outlook on Israel and are willing to read off the statements that Israel makes up for you, then you're going to get some advantageous support during election time.
Yeah, I was going to say, then throw into the mix that we've got Norway, Ireland, and Spain saying that they'll recognize a Palestinian state, potentially leaving Israel more isolated than ever before.
Right now, 140 out of the 193 countries of the UN already recognize Palestine, but they're not the significant countries. No. They're not like Canada.
But there's not been many European countries in that list. So exactly. The growing number of European countries in that list means that there is pressure upon veto states like Britain and France to change their vote.
Yeah. France is, I can't open the article that you sent me, but I've been watching it. Anyway, this is a big deal. We find that countries like Ireland, Norway, and Spain, who are very democratic countries, and these countries are recognizing Palestine, but the other Western countries are not. So you have to ask why. Why is that? And I have to ask also, why is everybody, why are we protecting Israel as much as we are anyway? Like, it seems to me we're not really getting a whole lot from that protection we afford them. Now, I don't believe that we shouldn't protect them, because if we didn't, it would have the Palestinians would revolt and there would be bloodbath there. So basically, I don't understand why we support Israel to the point where we do. and why the United States acts as if it is the client state of Israel and not the other way around.
Yeah, and actually, that's the interesting thing about this is that U.S. politics right now. It would, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I almost feel that when I'm looking up U.S. politics, there's only one thing they're discussing: the question of Israel and Gaza.
Well, they never really question it. They always go. They always default back to. We believe that the discussions and negotiations, when they come up with a negotiated peace, then we'll go and then we'll start looking at Palestine. But they know that the Israelis are putting a monkey wrench in that. They know that Benjamin Netanyahu has no compunction at all. He is not going to recognize any Palestinian state at all. No. He is going to continue to put settlers in the West Bank and take up more Palestinian land and knock down more Palestinian olive trees. He's going to continue to do that. And if he can ethnically cleanse Gaza, he will. This is the person that we're really dealing with. This is the kind of guy, in Likud party, which he belongs to, the very first thing in its charter says that Israel will be a country from the river to the sea. Sound familiar? It's the same thing the Palestinians are saying, free from the river to the sea. Well, before even that ever happened, it's in the Likud party, from the river to the sea. And before that, it was part of the initiatives of the Jewish terrorist groups, the Irgun and the Stern gang. So,
yeah.
He has no, not even the slightest notion of a Palestinian state. No way. He won't have it, and he hopes that it will. In the United States and Canada, and the West, he hopes that it'll go away. Once the war is over, it'll go away, and people start thinking of other things, like they always do. And then he can, when the next president comes in, Netanyahu can deal with them. He knows that all he needs is time, and he can just go ahead and do what he wants to do. Now, with Norway, Ireland, and Spain recognizing Palestinian state, that puts a little bump in the road for him, but I don't think it's too big of one.
Yeah, it's not a massive one, not unless there's a lot of, not unless you've got an US support for Palestine as well.
No, and that's not going to happen because of the powerful Israeli lobby. And what they do is they just kind of move it along, like, oh, we'll do that next week, or we'll do that next month, or we need to negotiate this or that. They're always postponing it. And also remember that the Israeli government is the one that supported Hamas all this time. They're the ones that gave it funding. They're the ones that helped start it off. So they helped develop Hamas as a counterfoil to the Palestinian Authority. That was part of their creation, and yet that creation blew up in their face, mind you.
Yeah. Well, and the issue here, of course, is that continuing on, the adding of Norway, Ireland, Spain puts immense pressure, as I said before, upon the two veto holding nations of UK and France, in terms of, particularly upon France, because I think the French have for a long time been concerned about the attacks upon Palestine. They've not used their veto yet, but they have made a lot of noise. They've been very concerned.
I don't know if the French are going to use their veto power. They might, but I don't know.
I don't see. At the moment,
go ahead.
At the moment, I see the UK as being the same as the US. We agree with that in principle. Let's discuss it next month.
Yeah, like the United States and Joe Biden. Joe Biden is one of the largest recipients of Israeli lobby money. He has been like he's been bought and paid for a long time by the Israeli lobby. This is what's so confusing to the poor Democrats, though. They've been staunch supporters of Israel, but now you have a situation where their younger members are not accepting that any longer. They have the ability to sympathize with the Palestinians. They can see the Palestinians are being put in untenable situations, and they're wondering why that is, and they won't be brushed aside as easily as Joe Biden wants them to be.
Yeah. Okay. I just added a comment from Chris Simone.
So 73% or 72 to 73% of the member countries of the UN already recognize Palestine, but that doesn't seem to be a matter. If they had a vote on it, the United States would veto it, or France, or Britain.
Yeah. Right now, I think that's the truth of the matter. Okay, so
so you got to ask yourself too, like, why is the United States doing as much as it can to protect Israel from everything, even public discourse? They use their veto power for Israel all the time, no matter what all the other countries think. They use their veto power. They protect Israel and everything, and they allow its criminals impunity. The Israeli settlers and the IDF in Gaza right now are operating with impunity. They're killing anybody they want, and they're not even get as much as a slap on the wrist. So you have to ask yourself, why is a country like the United States that touts democracy and those kind of things, freedom and equal opportunity, why it supports Israel so vehemently? What is the strategic need that the United States has to do that?
Yeah.
It's just something that doesn't make sense to me. That's why I ask it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
What's up?
No. Let's get rid of that. Okay. All right. No, I was just looking at where we were going next. Right. Okay. So billions of dollars in ad value, tens of billions of impressions, tens of thousands of mentions. That was the eclipse and the value it added to Niagara Falls and Niagara Falls tourism. And Mayor Jim is saying, I don't know we'll ever live to see numbers like this again.
Now this is a very, very positive spin, sort of the lining, the silver lining of the eclipse. Now we had an eclipse, the weather was bad, and they expected 1 million people, but 1 million people didn't come down, and the economic fallout, basically, or tidal wave that was supposed to happen, didn't really happen. But on the other hand, they have seen a way of making this a positive story, because Niagara Falls was the eclipse happened in Niagara Falls, that it got a lot of extra free advertisement, stuff they say that you can't pay for, and you know, Niagara Falls got like so many likes.
Niagara Parks, basically this stems from a Niagara Parks commissioners receiving a report that outlined the impact of local, national and international media coverage from this event. And not only that, it was the build up to the event between January January 30th and the event, and then thereafter for the next couple of days, that actually brought and focused a lot of attention on Niagara.
Yeah, that's what they're claiming here.
Yeah,
that's what they're claiming, that that it was unprecedented, the media analysis. Now, it's a kind of a new thing to sort of gauge how much free advertisement you got basically through social media. Will it make a difference? Does it make a difference, or is it just one of those things that people expect to see on their phones and don't pay much attention?
Yeah.
It says
But then again,
tens of billions of impressions and tens of thousands of mentions, and that is, they say, it was worth billions of dollars in ad value.
Yeah, but again, I put on a hashtag on this show with Niagara Falls on it, Niagara Falls, and another hashtag talk show, which basically might mean that actually, if you're looking at Niagara Falls, people may well see the show from Niagara Falls. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm expecting that we're going to get hundreds of new listeners.
No, but that's quite a bit of difference there. It's apples and oranges, really, in a big way. But yeah, I see your point. However, by this now, they have certain spokesmen here saying that yeah, that's really good. The Eclipse did us a big favor. We super solid. We got from the Eclipse, and that was basically from free advertisement.
Yeah.
Okay, so that free advertisement happened once, and it was during Eclipse time. Does it have the staying power? Number one, like how much of that being in and around the time of the Eclipse had any lasting impression on anyone that was looking at their phones at the time? Has there been any study that says, because this is the first time I've heard of a significant sort of free advertisement, and you want people to go around and do word of mouth to people. If you have, let's say, a club like Toastmasters or Kiwanis or something, you want the word of mouth to go out. You want people to know and mention your name.
Yeah, word of mouth has always been an interesting one, but it's very difficult to measure. There used to be a saying back before social media and everything. Well, there's a number of sayings that come from there, but there used to be a saying that if you do a good job, if your business does a good job, then your customers will tell 2 or 3 other people. If you do a bad job, then your customer is probably going to tell 20 or 30 people.
Yeah. So now let's put that exponentially into social media. So that little word of mouth you're talking about there is like traditional. Now they're saying here that particular word of mouth has gone steroidal. It is galactic, basically. Millions and billions of likes and impressions and all that shows up in social media. But does it have a lasting effect? Now they're saying that's free advertisement, but normally when you think of advertisement, you think of sustained advertisement. Like Marineland has had the same commercial for like 20 years. Some of the other attractions have had continuous advertisement. So this was a one-day thing, a 1 or 2 days or weekend thing. Does it have the sustainability enough to make a difference? It definitely would probably make Niagara Falls an attractive place to go for a holiday for a few people. Would it? But how much of a difference would it make to the people at large, like percentage-wise?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea? Any thoughts on that? Like, because this is the very first time. Do they have?
It's easy to say. You see, I hope that it does have a good impact. I hope that Mayor Jim's words are right. However, the problem lies with a lot of these things that it typically is like fairly short-lived. To be quite honest, is anybody talking about the eclipse now that we're nearly 2 months in after, right? I think there was more anticipation that it was coming than there is that it's gone, right? It's like, well, I've forgotten that. I've moved on, and I'm in a different part of my life now.
That's what I mean by how much weight does a few days of heavy social media attractions? How much weight does it have in a long time? Yeah. I don't know if they've, like, it seems to me this is a new kind of thing there, and they say, okay, we got all this extra huge amounts of free advertisement, but there's nothing there that tells you that how long lasting that is. I don't even know if they've got to that point where they've studied that part of it yet.
And this is just a piece of junk that I've just avoided throwing away.
Yeah. Well, you never know when a red hot asteroid will come streaming into our atmosphere. You get a couple good looks before we all explode.
Oh, okay, I'm keeping it for that reason. Yeah. But you see, part of me maybe says I'll become an eclipse chaser.
Well, you never know. Like I know I'm gonna bum when that asteroid comes screaming into the atmosphere. I'm gonna, oh man, where did I put those glasses?
I don't know that any, I have to say that in my view, I can't see why advertising would, why there'd be any further advertising impact now. That's gone. It was purely a January to April thing, and the problem lies is that a lot of people are going to say, well, the weather didn't cooperate.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. Like, it sounds good, and I like it. I'm from Niagara Falls, and I sure want Niagara Falls to have get its name out there as to many places, and to make sure that Niagara Falls is considered as a holiday place for many people, because I live here and I want my city to prosper. But the whole idea that we've had this huge, massive sort of free advertisement, and yet there's nothing that says that it's going to to have any kind of lasting effect. And that's the thing. I don't think they've even studied that part yet. I think they're just getting into the idea that when people go someplace or go to an event, a lot of free advertisement happens just because so many people are putting in their social media, like likes and impressions of someone else.
Right? I would think that right now the good weather we've been having over the last few days would also be attracting visitors, particularly those that can, those that don't have children to worry about.
Yeah, I'm sure the weather has drawn some people here. Particularly people from the GTA or something that just coming for the day, because they're going to look out the window, they're going to see, is it going to rain or is it whatever it's going to do, and then that will make the determination for them. Do they play bridge this week at Aunt Martha's, or do they come down to the falls? Well, if it's raining, they go to Aunt Martha's.
It's one way of looking at it, I guess. Yeah. I'm laughing because I think it's with a tinge of cynicism, but hey, that's fine, Dave.
Anyway, in conclusion, though, I love the fact that our city got all this extra ad revenue, but I'm not so sure the way in which it's reported that it really had any staying power at all. It does sound as if they're trying to make make a silk purse out of a sow ear. This was the eclipse. We didn't get all those zillions of people and all the money we thought we would, but we got all this free advertisement. So that's okay now.
Okay, so Dave, when you say "but" after a statement, it negates the point you previously made.
Like what? But
I don't know, but
sometimes it's supposed to be a contradictory thing. Like Canada is a sunny country today, but
it has winter.
In the wintertime it's going to be cold. So,
well, actually, the funny thing is, I would say that we have here in Niagara more sunny days in the winter than I experienced in England on average, even though we get more snow. And living in southern England, I never saw snow.
Well, England is the British Isles all in all are fairly much overcast, much more than
well, in wintertime overcast. In London it doesn't rain, but it's certainly overcast.
Yeah, London was one of the darkest places at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was there December 5th.
Well, you go to December,
December 5th. I was walking around London at 4 o'clock. You might as well be. You're half an hour away from the darkest time of night.
Well, in fact, by the time it's about 3:30 at some points in London, at some points it's 3:30 and it's dark in the evening.
Yeah. All I remember is when I was there December 5th, and they're changing the guards, and the what are they? The hussars, the ones on the horses,
hussars, yeah,
the SARS. In their red coats, like everything was so gray and so dull, and these red coats come on the horses, and it brightens everything up. It really was a contrast.
Yeah.
They stuck out like way, because everything was so dull around them, and then they showed up in their shiny hats and the red suits and their horses. It was quite spectacular, actually.
The last British unit wearing British Army red.
Yeah. The last of the redcoats.
Yeah. Okay, so it's an interesting one that you put up earlier on, but we're getting to it now because it's kind of the tail end of the stuff. Judges in the UK are going to hear WikiLeaks founder argument against being extradited to face trial in the US court.
Yes, the U.S. Will not. If you, the United States, and I'm pretty sure the other Western countries are too, are extremely vindictive. When they have somebody like Julian Assange who has embarrassed them so much, they're going to get him, and they're going to put him in a hole if they can possibly do it. If they can kill him along the way, they'll do that too. But mostly, what they want to do is make an example of him, put him in prison, and keep him there for the whole world to see. It doesn't matter what Julian Assange said, whether it was true, false, or in between. He's embarrassed the United States, and he's going to be a pariah, and they're going to want their pound of flesh off of Julian Assange. Right now, he's got a bit of a stay, though. Julian's got a bit of a stay because he is now permitted to appeal this, and that should delay operations at least.
Yeah, and the issue about this is, it's like, well, I'm thinking this is like, how many years is this? Actually, it's 13 years of legal battles that he's had, right? So it's probably 15 years since he's been on the run. And quite a few years he's been in that embassy, right?
Well, look what's happened to Snowden, okay? Snowden is a pariah figure. He told the truth. His moral conscience bothered him, as did Assange's, and he spoke up about the undemocratic and immoral ways in which the United States was conducting itself. The United States will never forgive you for that. Never, ever forgive you for that. the Julian Assange will never be forgiven for it, just for his collateral murder video, where the United States said a bunch of reporters plus citizens got in a way of a firefight between the bad guys and the good guys when it was the good guys destroying the press, the Reuters press crew from a helicopter. Like he'll never be forgiven for just that one video, but he's got all kinds of stuff out there.
Well, WikiLeaks is still running strong, and basically it's got. I just looked it up. It's got an article on there today, 5th of August 21. Okay, so it's a bit old. It's a bit dated now. 21, the Intolerance Network, 12th of November. Fish rot. Yeah, so they've become a bit dated, so there's nobody updating WikiLeaks anymore by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Who's going to be able to do it, and who wants to do it? They want to bring the ire of the United States on them, you know.
Yeah, but the site is still up, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And in some respects, I would have expected that a deal would have been done insofar as if he closed the site down, that would be the end of it.
Yeah. So
originally.
But also remember what they did to Chelsea Manning.
Manning.
When he's
really
off the hook
in the back.
Yeah, he really got it. Like he's another person whose conscience got the better of him, and he was the one actually that fed WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, with the materials. Now, what they did to him, that for 1,000 days, I think it was over 1,000 days, they had him or 1,100 days, they had him in confinement in the prison, where he got 1 hour of every day. I think he was allowed to walk around, but the whole time he was just shoved into confinement, and of course, what happens to a person when that happens? Like, I mean, you go mad. Yeah, that's why it's such a punishment. But no one knows why they. Like, I don't understand why they put him in confinement and in prison. Why they do that?
Yeah.
I think it's just going to be vindictiveness, and I'm not so sure any other country would not have done the same thing. China, of course, Russia, right? But the United States and the West is supposed to be better. We're supposed to be the ones that look at the stuff we've done wrong and kind of come to terms with it. And a lot of times we do, but after the fact, like Vietnam. Okay, so there's lots of hand-wringing after Vietnam, but during Vietnam, we're dropping napalms on villages, right? There's going to be a lot of. We're turning our back on Gaza right now. The Western nations, we don't know if there's a genocide going on there now, just like they did with Rwanda. Remember Rwanda? If they said it was a genocide, they would have had to do something about it. So they did a lot of work to make sure they didn't say genocide. And Bill Clinton's spokesperson, the lady at the UN, must have nightmares to this very day that she was instructed to make sure she did not use the word genocide. No matter how many times she was pushed on this by reporters and that, no, it's not a genocide, but it was. And the reason why she was instructed never to use that word, despite the accurate description, is because then the United States would have had to do something about it.
Yeah.
According to
the question also, I have to wonder actually whether the impact upon Chelsea Manning was because he's a transsexual, originally born Bradley Manning, of course. And I wonder whether that was a part of the challenge that he faced.
Well, of course, everybody's going to say that he's a nutcase.
Yeah.
And why do you want to rely upon a nutcase? That's
Yeah.
that's what they're going to say. He's a twisted deviant. But the fact is that the facts that he transmitted to Julian Assange were undeniable.
Yeah.
There were undeniable truths, which embarrassed the United States and Canada and anyone else who there's stuff there on Canada, Russia, everything, Saudi Arabia. There's all kinds of things that are questionable. You expect your own government to be sort of perhaps not the most ethical when it comes to dealing with another country, particularly if that country is not the most ethical. But when you're talking about what Julian Assange has revealed, outright abuses of power, I'm not sure that the average American should know this stuff and should find ways of dealing with it. The American people have to understand that their country is the most powerful in the world, and and the kind of face that the United States projects as one of fairness, democracy, and all that other stuff. But you can see what's happening in Gaza right now, where they're feeding bombs to Israel to drop on the Palestinians. That's kind of a huge amount of hypocrisy involved there.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the same in relation to Julian Assange. Right.
Yes. Is he though? Like, now there's a lot of people that hope that this extradition thing doesn't happen. What would ideally be the right thing to do is to have Julian Assange repatriated to Australia. The Australians want that. Most of the British people, I think, want that. I think the world wants that overall. They want Julian Assange to be repatriated back in Australia and left alone. He could be, if he left the shores of Australia, maybe he'd be arrested. Who knows? But let him go back to his country. That's where he belongs. Australia is a democratic country, and it has deemed that his so-called crimes are not that bad in the long run, and that he was following a journalistic urge to do journalism.
Yeah.
However,
and that would actually be the right path, really. I think, send him back to Australia, because essentially what is going to happen if he goes back to the US, if he gets extradited to the US, it's going to be a situation of he will serve whatever term the term is, and he's probably already served that term in that embassy, and and essentially, so he'll serve another 15 years as say in an American prison, and then he'll be extradited to Australia. He'll be deported to Australia.
Well, he's going to be put in solitary confinement, which already has happened to him.
Yeah.
And you're going to put him in a solitary confinement for 1,100 days, like Manning was. I mean, then you come out and you do the court thing. I mean, where's your mind's turned to mush? And one of the times they had him in Britain. They had him in a glass box, basically, and he couldn't hear what was going on. And now they put him in there. I don't know why they thought that they had to put him in a glass box, that they think he was going to be a risk. His father said if it wasn't such a tragic thing, it would have been hilarious, because he was in a glass box, and anytime he had to hear or listen or talk to the justices, he had to kneel down to a little vent in the floor near the bottom, and yell out his replies there or listen to him there. It was bizarre. So whatever the guy's gone through right now is just not. And his parents, the people that know him, want him back in Australia. He's a bit of a hero, but the United States and whistleblowers don't do too well in the world. In reality, we think of whistleblowers as being heroes and things like that. They usually get crushed somewhere along the line.
Oh, they do. They do. That's for sure. All right. So moving on. Oh, hang on a minute. We've got okay. Chris Simone's just saying thanks for the show. There you go. Thanks. All right.
Nice to see you again, Chris.
Yeah. Okay. So more than 1,500 stolen Canadian vehicles have been identified around the world since February, says Interpol.
Yeah. So we are more represented in stolen vehicles than anyone else. Can you believe it? Even more than the United States.
Yeah. That is odd.
When the opposition has said that the system in Canada is not only dumb, it's inefficient, it's unprofessional, and it's just plain dumb. Particularly when a guy could come to the yard in the shipyards in Montreal and tell the police that my truck is in there.
Here.
Yeah. This is my, and they say, well, no, there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to have to send it to whatever country it is. And you're saying that sounds ridiculous. And the federal government kind of goes along with, well, there's nothing much we can do about it. There are things.
Yeah, that's complete bullshit, you know. That really is, because many vehicles have got global tracking systems on them. This global tracking system stuff is not like it's it's not like it's 3 minutes old. It's been around for 20, 30 years. The technology has proven itself over the years, and and now all you have to do, if you bought a vehicle with the tracking system on it, there's likely a number you've got on your on there, which should be in your files in your home, that says, hey, my vehicle is whatever the identifier is, and it's been stolen, and the global tracking takes off from there.
What's interesting here is that the Conservatives have warned about this for quite a while. I don't think it was a big reveal on their part, but they saw that the government was getting pretty soft on the criminals that are doing this. And the idea of a car thief being back out on getting arrested in the morning and back out in the afternoon stealing a car again was according to the Conservatives, and not denied by the NDP or the Liberals, that this is actually happening. So the same thief can be arrested a couple times during the day and still steal cars and make some money. I think, is this, now I'm going to ask this question, is this related to our sort of catch and release system of justice? I'm not trying to diss the system that the Liberals have brought in, because they're trying to go lighter on crime and trying to be a more progressive in dealing with crime. However, it hasn't worked. They haven't filled in the gaps. So they're getting people back out on the street faster. They're not incarcerating them. That's supposed to be a good thing. But the fact of the matter is the thieves keep on doing what they're doing.
It hasn't stopped. You see, the problem, there's a lot of things going on here that I think the Liberals are in cloud cuckoo land over, to be quite honest. I'm going to be as blunt as that. When you've got businesses that are being raided, and there's certain businesses now that can't get insurance because they've been raided too many times, right? You've got a problem. When you've got more than 1,500 brand new or nearly new vehicles being stolen in Canada and being sent abroad, and the police refuse to do anything about it, you've got a problem. You know, there's so many things, and when you've got illegal arms traders who are just getting off scot-free, you've got a problem, right? That's just on the police, on the arrest side and the detainment side of the criminal factor.
Yes, I think basically the connection I was trying to make there. Do we have the worst record for stolen cars? I mean, our stolen cars are showing up all over the world, more than any other country per capita, basically. So what is this related to our justice system and our catch and release, the so-called catch and release that conservatives call? Is there a relationship there? If the laws were tougher, I think so too. I'm unfortunately there's a lot of pressure to make the laws and punishments more humane, but they don't work. When you get a criminal, you got to treat them like a criminal. You have to give them a deterrent. It's like drinking and driving laws. We have the drinking and driving laws, but what do we have to do? We have to put up ride programs on the side of the road and bust people every once in a while. If we don't do that, nobody takes it seriously, the drinking and driving thing, or at least a percentage of a dangerous percentage of the population.
There's a certain point is whilst how we deal with those who've been charged and been found guilty is another question entirely. Now, the question about arrests and detaining people is a big problem, because exactly that. It's like, well, you've just been found with a cache of 500 weapons. Oh, it's okay, Dave. You just we'll set you a date for the 14th of October. Come back in then. We'll see you then. Bye bye. And what's Dave going to do? He's going to go get his new cache of weapons that he managed to stash away that they didn't find. Take that off and sell them, right?
Yeah. So, in any case, I think that the federal government's come down with some harsher rules right now, and it's kind of contrary to the kind of justice system that they had envisioned. So they're taking a big step backwards and trying to come down on car thieves a little harder. I don't know if that's going to work or not. I mean, it's pretty embarrassing when your country is the
you got to break
more
up
countries gets more like there's no way they can't even. Well, really, if a guy tells you that his truck is right over there and you can't get it for him and it has to be sent to someplace overseas, the system's not working.
Oh yeah, you know that. Yeah, exactly. And the point being is that there's an organized crime here, because essentially the guy who, a lot of these are put on ships within 24 hours, and those ships are heading out of Montreal. So your car isn't being driven from here to Montreal if it gets stolen. It's being driven to a local yard, and then it's being put onto a car transporter and then being transported.
Well, it's probably put into a sea can quite quickly. You can buy or rent sea cans, so it's probably done that way. There's probably a place close by to Toronto or other places, and where they just kind of wrecking yards, maybe, where they just drive the cars into a sea can and then have a transport truck take it to the docklands, and there's where it will be transported. But you don't have to know that our system is pretty bad. I don't know what's our country's sort of slipping a bit. When Toronto Airport was the second worst in the world, I mean, it should be our flagship airport, but it's the worst in the world, and we have the worst record for stolen cars. that kind of thing. I don't know. I think there's Laurie Parliament, our listener, says what they are saving on keeping people out of jail is costing the consumer more on insurance rates for all these break-ins and thefts. We should be like the USA, 3 strikes and you're out. I don't think the 3 strikes and you're out is a really good idea because, I mean, stealing cigarettes from a corner store three different times puts you in prison.
I'm not a 3-strike person, but we do need to be harsher on sentences when people get, basically, some of these. The problem lies is that people are going out. Shops are going out of business because they're getting robbed too much and they can't get insurance. Why have we got this kind of mentality in a situation? Those businesses are innocent parties, and they need the support and the backup and the assurance that those people are going to be sent to jail.
The harshness, I'm not so sure I would agree with harsh, but but one that has detrimental effects. Seriously, like if you steal somebody's car and there is no deterrent, then you're going to steal another car. If you're not put in jail, or if your movements aren't restricted, or your license isn't removed from you, or something that dissuades you from doing that. And Laurie Parliament says you might change your mind on that if it happened to you. Yeah, well, the 3 strikes, I do agree with you that they should be the punishments for crime should suit them, and they should have a strong deterrent element to them. Because if you can do anything you want, you will just do anything you want, particularly a criminal. So that part I do, but I'm not so sure the 3 strikes. And if it happened to me, yeah, definitely. If my car was stolen or something like that, I would bum huge. And then I would want the answers that the government cannot provide right now, because I don't know. She's right when it says the amount of money you save by not putting people in jail. But that was only part of it. There's this whole wave of ideas if you don't put them in jail and if you treat them more kindly and all that. And that was part of the source of Trudeau's not wanting to make handguns have the same penalties as other guns if you have them in a crime. As a matter of fact, he's saying that handguns they'll take the immediate compulsory charge of owning a gun away from handgun owners, because he's afraid it's going to affect the minority communities more than, which is dumb logic. Dumb. I don't know who
crime's a crime, at the end of the day. Anyway, we're going to have to think about signing out. We always seem to end up with these interesting topics when we end up going over the top.
Yeah, quite. And anyway, thanks very much, Laurie, for chiming in on that one. It will help me set my reset button on that. But I'm pretty much with you in the fact that crime should have a turn. No sense in.
We were talking about I was talking about this we were talking about this the other day in relation to rape and sexual assault. That a sentence, for example, a first strike of, or even drunk driving, a first strike where there's quite a serious penalty involved, a second strike where that is compulsorily enlarged, and a third strike where, for example, if you're drunk driving, why shouldn't you on a third strike be banned from driving for the rest of your life? I think that is fair and reasonable.
Well, they do have some kind of graduated system like that already. After 10 years, you can't, if you like, I think it goes 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, something like that. I forget, but yeah, they're trying to come down hard on them.
Yeah,
and we talked about it yesterday when we talked about the deal they were going to give to.
Oh
certain
yeah,
people,
I know.
you know.
And hey, I get it that with that deal they're trying to basically release a backlog in the criminal system, but I disagree with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Cuba, Laurie makes the point. In Cuba, it's 15 years for shoplifting. It's a deterrent to stop you from stealing.
What about Singapore? Has some of the harshest laws. I'll use that word this time. Harshest laws there are. Remember that American guy that was thought he was funny and he vandalized a bunch of cars. He was caned. He was supposed to be caned 6 times, which is extremely painful punishment. But they were able to talk him into 3. Like the U.S. were able to knock it down to 3, but they didn't want him caned at all. But the reason why those draconian laws came into effect was to control a wild and diverse population. So they had to come down with very strict laws, because each one, of course, you had the Chinese, you had the Malays, you had the Indians, you had a bunch of different people in a mixed in that society, and the only way to control them, so thought the Singaporeans, was to come down on very hard laws. And you have a wonderful, peaceful city where you can do anything you want and enjoy anything, but if you abuse anything, there will be a harsh punishment.
Yeah, and the whole point is, in some respects, that does work. You know, and there's been examples of, for example, ancient laws in relation to stealing. On the first occasion, there'd be a minor penalty applied. On the second occasion, you'd lose your index finger. On the third occasion, you'd lose your thumb. On the fourth occasion, you'd lose your entire hand. Right? Makes people think about it, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, that was the whole idea of the eye for the eye, tooth for tooth. Hammurabi gets the praises for bringing this law code in, but it was actually happened earlier than that. He was working on somebody else's stuff. But
Hammurabi,
the eye for the eye, the tooth for the tooth, that's the only thing they could use as a deterrent at that time. So if you knock somebody's tooth out, then your tooth would be knocked out. But the thing that people don't realize is you can negotiate that. You can say, look, I'm sorry to knock your tooth out, but I'll give you $200. Is that and then I won't have my tooth knocked out. Is that okay? All right, I'll take the $200. You take the $200, or you can knock my tooth out. Well, I'll take the 200. So those are there is a bit of negotiation happening there. But you can see the deterrent effect. When they had a law, if you built somebody a house and it collapsed, you're liable for that. And if somebody got killed in that, then your own life was void, unless you could negotiate yourself out of it. So that would encourage somebody to build a good house, because they didn't want it to fall down and they have to pay the consequences. And the same thing with all other manner of things. You want to be careful around your neighbors so you don't knock their tooth out, and your tooth has to be knocked out.
Yeah. There's a basic, there's, in a way, it has its just qualities, but it doesn't really work in our modern society, does it? And that's part of the problem we face. All right.
Well, anyway, we still have a lot of laws based on that eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, particularly in suing.
I've got to get going. I've got to support somebody today.
Okie doke. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace, everyone.
Yeah.